Did you know that you can make a regular sourdough loaf into a pretzel? Come along with me and I'll show you how I did it. Hey everybody, it's been a long time since I've made a video. I've been extremely busy, but I really wanted to try this pretzel sourdough just to see if it was actually going to work. So let's do it. It's really simple. Everything is going to start out just like we're making a regular sourdough loaf. So I'm going to do my regular recipe to start, and then we're going to change the process a little bit before we bake. All right, so we are going to do my regular sourdough recipe. We're going to zero out our scale, warm water, not hot. I don't know what the temp is. It's probably room temperature. And we are going to do 325 grams of water. Next, we're going to take starter that has been fed this morning. It has peaked and it is actually starting to fall again. That is my favorite time to bake with it because it's starting to get hungry again. And so it will want to rise better since it's already eaten and now it's falling. So clear out the scale, okay? We're gonna do 100 grams of active starter, past peak. Ooh. Wow, that was exactly 100. Perfect. Okay, I will clean that mess in a minute. All right, next, we're gonna swirl this around a little bit just to break it up. Okay. Next, we're gonna do 500 grams of bread flour. Okay, and then we're gonna do 20 grams of olive oil. Okay, and 10 grams of salt. I'm using kosher salt today. Doesn't really matter what you use, it's just what I felt like using today. Perfect. All right, so now we're gonna mix this all up, take it off the scale, and mix up our dough till it's a shaggy dough. When you're using a dough whisk, I only mix it until it's kind of just barely incorporated together with the dough whisk. And then if you use a wet hand, you can get most of the dough off of the whisk because it is kind of a pain. It sticks in all the little grooves. And then you take a wet hand and you mix the rest of the dough. Try and keep it in the bowl. That's the most important part. And I'll wet my hand several times throughout this process until it's a nice everything's fully incorporated and it's a shaggy dough. And a scraper helps a lot to get it off your hands. And your dough is supposed to be really sticky at this stage, so that's totally normal. You're not doing anything wrong. You're just going to have really sticky dough right now. The main thing right now is to just make sure that all of the flour is fully mixed into this dough. All right, and then after this, we're gonna do our 30-minute to 1 hour rest. Really doesn't matter. I've done both and gotten the very same loaf. So I think today, just for time's sake, it's already 7:30. I think I'm going to just do a 30-minute rest with the shaggy dough. And then from there, we're gonna start our stretch and folds. So now we're gonna cover the dough and let it sit for 30 minutes. And then we'll be back to start our stretch and folds. It will be just the same as my normal recipe. So we're gonna do 4 sets of stretch and folds, 30 minutes apart. And then from there, we'll go into bulk fermentation and wait for it to rise and then shape it. So like I said, when we're doing this recipe, everything is going to be identical to making a regular sourdough loaf up until it's time to bake. That's when the process will change just a little bit in order to get this to turn into a pretzel. So I'll see you back in 30 minutes and we'll start our stretch and folds. All right, it's time for our first stretch and fold. So we're gonna wet our hand, grab our dough. Right now it's gonna be super stretchy. You're gonna lift it up and over on top. So up and over, up and over. And already, just in that one stretch and fold, you can see I cannot lift it very high anymore. It's already building that elasticity in it. And that's it. So now we're gonna do that again in 30 minutes. Alexa, timer for 30 minutes. She's not listening to me as usual. So in 30 minutes, we will be back and we will do the second set of stretch and folds. All right, it is time for stretch and fold number 2. Again, wet your hand. And we're gonna just do exactly what we did before, going all the way around the bowl. And the dough has already transformed from how it looked at the beginning with the shaggy dough. Now it's got a real nice smooth look to it. So, and that's only after one stretch and fold and now the second one. So that's it. Literally takes 30 seconds. Recover it up, set a timer for 30 minutes again. It's gonna take me longer to put this on. There we go. And we'll be back in 30 minutes for stretch and fold round 3. Okay, stretch and fold number 3. Wet our hands again. All right, so we're gonna do this one more time. Alexa, timer for 30 minutes.
30-minute timer started.
We'll be back for our last stretch and fold, and then we will temp the dough and get it set up for bulk ferment. All right, time for stretch and fold number 4, our final one. And then we are going to move it into this Cambro so that it can do its bulk fermenting. Right. So we've got a nice smooth ball of dough now. I just kind of stretch it all out. Anything that will still stretch, I'm gonna keep stretching it. All right. So from here, we're gonna move it into the Cambro and just kind of flatten it out a little bit so that way we can get a good measurement on the sides of how much rise we need to do. So we're going to take our digital internal thermometer. We're going to stick it right in the center of the dough. And I'm getting a reading of 72.9, so we'll call it 73. Okay, since it temps at 73 degrees, we're gonna go for about a 60% rise. So 60%, we'll take a look at our Cambro here, and we're about that high on our dough line right now. So right at close to where that red mark is. So if we took that, that's double, that's 100%. We need to go below that. So probably close to where this line actually is currently sitting is going to be our, that's just by chance. But this looks like to be about where we want our dough to be when it rises. So when this line gets up to here, then we'll be ready to shape. So because my house is cold, because it's summertime in Texas, I'm gonna leave this on the counter. My house runs about 70 degrees. And so that's gonna slow this fermentation down. If my house was warmer, it would rise faster. So I think it's gonna be good for the bulk of the night, only because I recently did this, made some bread, and it took all night to rise. So I think it's gonna be fine. I'm just gonna leave it on my counter for the night. And in the morning, we will check how much it's risen, and if we're good, then we will get ready to bake. All right, welcome back. It has been a few hours that this has sat on the counter and fermented. It's a little bit above the line, but it's not overproofed. We can tell it's not watery or super jiggly or anything like that. So even though it went above the 60% line I set here, it's definitely not overproofed. So we're still fine. We've got nice bubbling here. We always check for that. We want it to have bubbles here. There's not a lot of bubbles on top, but the dough is also pretty chilled. So that's not super surprising that we don't have a lot of bubbles on the top, because the colder the dough is, the less it really it ferments a lot slower. So we do know it is okay though, because look how easy it is peeling away from the side. No problems there. So, and it's not super sticky, so we're good. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna carefully remove it from the bowl. And it should pull away. We almost are 100% clean, so that's good. All right, so we're gonna do our first shape. Slowly, very carefully stretch it out. Now we're getting some bubbles. So we know it's got a good, it had a good fermentation. So we're just going to carefully roll this up into a ball and do our push-pulls as we always do. All of this is the same as if we're making any type of sourdough loaf. Nothing here has changed. So we're gonna do some of this here. We're gonna tighten up the top. It's gonna be nice and smooth. As we're tucking in, we push out and we tuck under. So we push out, tuck under. So as we're tucking, we're tightening everything up. All right, so now we are going to let this sit and kind of relax for about 30 minutes. And then we're gonna come back, do the final shape, and plop it into the banneton. And when we do that, we're gonna put it in the fridge, and we're gonna start our process that will get this to be a pretzel. So this is where the process is about to change, and we're gonna do a totally different process to get our result. But for now, we're just gonna have a 30-minute rest, and we'll be back. Okay, it's been 30 minutes. So we are going to do just a little bit more shaping here, and then it's gonna go into the banneton. So again, we're just gonna push and pull toward us, push away and pull toward us. And now we're starting to get some really big bubbles. I don't know if you can see that one right there. All right, and you do kind of wanna pop those, because if you don't, then when it bakes, you'll get a big air pocket. So I usually pop the big ones. Okay, doesn't require a lot of shaping. In fact, this is very well fermented, so it's not probably gonna lose a whole lot of shape. So we're gonna put it into a floured, seasoned banneton. So we just scoop it up, flip it upside down, and lay it in here. The dough is gonna relax and pull apart, which is normal. We want it to just kind of chill out. And then once it kind of fully relaxes, then we will do a little bit of a stitch just to make the bottom look kind of nice. And then we're gonna throw it in the refrigerator. So while this relaxes, I'm gonna get stuff started over here that will go into our next step. Okay, here we are at the stove. I have filled a large pot with water, a little more than halfway, but less than 3/4, so kind of right in the middle. We're gonna start heating this water. We want it to come to a low boil, not anything super crazy, but we do need a little bit of a boil. So while this heats up, we are also gonna start our oven. We're gonna set our temperature to 500 degrees, and we're gonna put this cold Dutch oven into the oven and let it heat up together. This Dutch oven has my pie weights on the inside of it, and it is cold. Nothing has been heated up yet. So we're gonna put this Dutch oven into the cold oven and let it heat up together. And while that's heating and getting up to temp, we're gonna get this to a boil, and then we're gonna add baking soda to the water that we're gonna dunk our dough into before we bake. Okay, now we're gonna stitch our dough. So it's real easy. You just grab two pieces and you just fold it over each other, kind of hold it in place. Again, you'll do the same thing. You'll just go all the way down, kind of like you're stitching a football together or baseball. You just think of the way the stitching pattern is. And then you grab the end here and you bring it over. And it actually helps if your hand is a little bit wet. It helps the dough kind of stick to each other, just to make it look a little bit more even on the bottom. Then we're gonna cover it and we're gonna stick this in the fridge while we wait for everything else to heat up. Okay, now we're getting kind of a nice low boil going, so I'm gonna take 1/4 cup of the baking soda and we are gonna just add it to the water. And now we're gonna pull the dough out of the fridge and we're going to put it in here for its baking soda bath. So we're just gonna take the top off. Kind of stitch this up a little better. We're gonna take our silicone sling, press it lightly, not too firm, onto the bottom, just enough for it to stick. And then we're gonna flip it over. And we are going to throw it into the bath just like this. We're not gonna score it yet. We're gonna put it in just like this. This process is gonna go pretty quickly. We're gonna dunk it in here and it will probably float off of the sling, and that's okay. We're gonna take a spoon and we're gonna ladle on top of the dough the water with the baking soda in it. And again, we don't want it super boily. We're gonna let this drain. You're gonna see all the bubbles that have now appeared on top because it's hot. And that's it. It's like 10-15 seconds is all the time that you need. Okay, so now we're gonna just do a simple score. Nothing fancy. You can if you want. I'm just not going to. And into the Dutch oven and into the oven. Okay, I've got it in the oven. We are gonna drop the temp down to 450. And we are gonna bake it with the lid on for 35 minutes. And then we're gonna check the internal temperature and see how much longer it may take to get it to hit 210. Okay, we're gonna check the temperature. Right now we're getting a reading around 144. So what I'm going to do is leave the lid on for a little longer. I like the lid to stay on until the internal temperature reaches between 170 and 180. So we're gonna do another 10 minutes with the lid on. All right, we're about 183. So we're gonna leave the lid off now. And we are gonna bake it another 15 minutes with the lid off. All right, just came out of the oven. We are temping at 209. So we are done. Now I did realize that I did one vital mistake, and that was I forgot to put the sea salt on it before I baked it. So this should be covered in sea salt. I forgot that part. All right, it's out of the oven and it's cooling. It looks really good, sounds really good, and it's got a nice sheen to it, like a pretzel. I'm a little annoyed with myself that I forgot the sea salt because that really makes it look like a pretzel. So the step that I forgot is after you put it in the baking soda bath, then you're going to score it before you put it in the Dutch oven, sprinkle on the top some flaky sea salt, just all over the top. Then put it in your oven and bake it. So that's the only thing I forgot. So it doesn't really have that pretzel look to it because it's missing the sea salt, in my opinion, but it's got a nice glossy sheen. It's got that crispy outer shell, and then it'll have a nice soft chewy center. So that's it. It's very simple. Just follow my regular sourdough recipe, and at the end, before you bake, you're gonna do the baking soda bath. That's what's really gonna make the difference. So let's cut into this and see how it looks. I've learned my lesson and wear a cut glove now because last year I cut myself really bad on my bread knife. It's bounced off as I was slicing into it. It bounced off and sliced right into my finger. I should have had stitches, but I'm also a big baby, and so I did not do that. I had my husband super glue it together, but now I have a pretty gnarly little scar right here that is a reminder that you should wear a cut glove anytime that you're working with knives. So, let's take a look. That looks really good. Got a nice tight crumb, and it is nice and soft. So I'm excited. It smells delicious. I'm excited to try it. And I've also got a new toy here. So this thing is pretty cool. It is a rotary bread cutter. And I think I want to cut my bread this way into smaller pieces. So you just turn the crank and push it through, kind of like you would do a meat slicer, only you're doing it by hand. And I cut everything into about 1-inch slices. But it makes a really nice slice. So it's easier to slice your bread. So that's it. That's how easy it is to turn your sourdough loaf into a pretzel. So what would you like to see me bake next? Drop a comment below and let me know.